Hey guys! Thank you for clicking on this video. My name is Lex, and I'm going to be reviewing the differences between the Birdbox movie and the book. Now, I've tried to film this video 4 times, so I'm just going to go ahead and jump in. So I do want to first start out by saying that this will all have spoilers. I'm not holding back. There won't be a spoiler-free section. I'm giving it all to you because, like I said, I recorded this 4 times. So I'm just giving it all. So if you want to watch the movie or read the book or do both first before watching my video, please go do that. Birdbox is about an apocalypse that happens where something outside, which we find out is like some sort of creature, makes you go crazy. So one of the first differences that I want to point out is that in the movie, the second that it starts happening, Mallory is already like 6 months pregnant or something like that, and her sister's already dead within the first like 5 minutes, and she immediately goes into the house. Now in the book, the apocalypse actually starts when Mallory first gets pregnant, and we see her and her sister deal with that through the apocalypse. In the book, Mallory really wants to stay ignorant, and her sister is the exact opposite. She's boarding up the house and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden her sister dies, and then Mallory has to find a way to the safe house that she had found in the newspaper. For the most part, I do think that that was right for the movie, except for one thing. So it kept the movie going forward without any like slow parts to keep people interested. But in the book, we're 6 months in, so people are more aware of what's actually happening. Versus in the movie, like people just automatically know what are the do's and don'ts of living in this society, which is completely unrealistic. Versus the book, you had some time for people to kind of learn a little bit more about how to stay safe. Also, along with that, in the book, when you go crazy, you kill everyone around you very violently and then yourself. Versus the movie where you only kill yourself. Now, I also really like that for the book because of the fact that the deaths were more interesting. You got to see different deaths besides just the main characters. We heard stories from like Russia and Canada. People were killing their friends and their family members. It was very gruesome. The movie only having people kill themselves actually did solve a problem for me. So in the book, Shannon kills herself by seeing something outside a window in her and Mallory's bathroom. Mallory's downstairs, she's a couple months pregnant, defenseless, but Shannon just kills herself in the bathroom. My thought process was maybe like out of sight, out of mind, but then we go to George, which in the movie is, I think the first guy to die, the one that watched the camera, which was the same thing that George did, but in the book he's an older man who actually owns the home, and this happens before Mallory gets here. It was one of the flashbacks. But in the book, when George sees the creature, he starts screaming out for Tom and Don because he really wants to kill them. So that was a huge plot hole as to why some people kill other people and some people just kill themselves. I hated that in the book. Like, it drove me nuts. But because people only killed themselves in the movie, it was a lot less gory, which I get, making it into a movie, it would be very hard for people to watch, especially because in the book, George died by like skinning himself, trying to get out of the chair. I can't remember vividly, but it was something like that. It was very gruesome. And I mean, I love to read that, but it probably would have been a little hard to watch on film. Now, in the movie, I think that the emotional aspect was done very well. In the book, I mean, I could be wrong, but as far as I remember, I don't ever remember Mallory breaking down besides the fact that when her sister died, which I know is very tragic. But when everyone else in the house dies and we don't really see anything of her like being sad or anything, like that messed me up, man. I'm a very emotional person, and for you to just like know that all your friends are dead and just be like, okay, it's fine. Like, at least once Tom died, you could see Mallory's reaction. You could see that she was crying, she was hysterical, and then instantly she was like, you know what, we're packing, we're getting out of here. Now, in the book, like I said, besides her sister dying, I don't remember ever seeing any emotions from her. In the book, Tom dies with the rest of the household, and then Mallory waits 4 years to take the kids to the place that they're supposed to be going to, which I kind of understand, but that part made a little bit more sense in the movie since she no longer had Tom. It was kind of like a breaking point where she had to leave. But the psychological aspects and the questions asked in the book were so intense that I hate that there really wasn't a way to incorporate it into the movie. Like the fact that, obviously criminally insane, or who I think weren't really affected by the creatures, or maybe schizophrenia. And I feel bad saying that because obviously schizophrenic people like horrible, but I think that in the book and the movie, I think if you were prone to those, I think that that's what made you more immune, I suppose. That's kind of what I took from it. I'd say the first quarter, they didn't know, if someone is already insane, well, seeing a creature affect them, versus the movie, you knew that right away. In the book, also, if a animal sees one of the creatures, they go crazy, and that was a big question in the book as well. And also, Mallory wanted to blind her children. She also classically conditioned them to a point where we would say is abuse, but you didn't really see that part in the movie. So her wanting to blind her children lasted a couple months where she kept thinking about it and she just decided not to. But at the point of babies, she was like hitting them and stuff whenever they would open their eyes. And she would put them through very vigorous testing to make sure that their hearing was 10 times better than hers, where in the movie you saw maybe a tiny bit, but you didn't really see any of the extremities that she had put her children through. Now, I do want to say that I know that it kind of sounds like I'm hating on the movie a little bit, but I actually feel the exact opposite. Now, a big con in the book, something that I could not look over and actually made Birdbox the most disappointing read of 2018 for me, because I read this in about February, was the pacing and the time jumps of the book. I think that the movie did it really well. I think that it kept the suspense, kept me afraid, and even though I'd read it and I knew it was going to happen, it kept me interested in it. Versus the book, the only reason I kept reading was because I had never read anything like this before, but I was never scared. I was never interested. In fact, I was pretty bored throughout the entire book because of the time jumps and because of the pacing. It wasn't until chapter 42 that I was actually interested in what was happening in the book versus the topic or the premise of the book, if that makes any sense. Let me give you an example. In the book, there's an extra character named Jules, and him and Tom actually go out house to house for grocery shopping. They don't actually go to any grocery store like they did in the beginning of the movie. So that part was a lot more intense to me, or at least I thought it would, but Josh Malloran decided to do a time jump where first you see Jules and Tom leaving the house, and you get to listen to the housemates bicker and fight over if they're going to be okay, and Mallory try to keep the house together. And then you see Tom and Jules get back, and they're perfectly fine, they're perfectly safe, and then he time jumps back to when Tom and Jules first went out, and then describes like all the things that they saw and all the scary things that were happening to them, which weren't fucking scary because I knew that they were gonna make it back safely. Sorry, I feel so passionate about this because this book could have been so much better. But that is just one example, and there were multiple like that where I think the suspense was taken out and I was never afraid for our characters, to the point where when they died, I guess I was just so uninterested by that point. Like, that was chapter 42. Again, there's a lot of spoilers. But, like, after chapter 42, like, is when I started to get interested. And the way that Josh Mellerman tells his stories are great. Like, he's not overly descriptive, but he tells you exactly what you need to where you can see exactly what's happening in your mind, which is a wonderful talent. But the fact that he took all of the fear and all the suspense out of the book just made it so disappointing, and I just felt like I wasted so much time. But watching the movie, I honestly enjoyed myself. I thought that the movie did such a better job with the time jumps and with the pacing, and it didn't really give anything away before it was supposed to be given away, and that's what I absolutely love about it. The only thing that I wish that the movie would have included that would have made the movie like 10 out of 10 stars for me was Tom's daughter. In the book, we know that Tom had a daughter before he came to house. She loved life, she loved going to school, she loved her friends, and I believe she was 8 years old. And so when the apocalypse happened, her and her dad argued all the time because she just wanted life to be the same way that it was. He had to crush her dreams and tell her that it wasn't. Ultimately, one day in the bathroom, she cuts her wrist. There was a question in the book of whether she saw a creature outside and the creature took her life from her by making her kill herself, or if this 8-year-old was that in tune with herself to know that things weren't ever going to be the same and that she was never going to be happy again, and she chose to take her life. I just felt like that was such an emotional part that I would have loved to see in the movie. We also have the difference of where there was a radio show host that they're listening to throughout the book, and he decides to make his last show where he kills himself, and he tells them that, you know, the creatures are never going to take his life away from him. And that was really deep as well, because of the fact that they didn't include that people kill other people, it actually changed the ending slightly. They still end up at a school for the blind. At one point before Mallory gets there, a woman actually goes through and kills a bunch of people because she sees a creature outside. So at that point it was mandatory, if you went into the building, that you would have to become blind to be able to stay there. And I thought that that was also a very interesting part that I'm kind of upset that they weren't able to include. But overall, I would say I would give the movie about an 8 out of 10 versus the book, where I would give it about a 4.5 out of 10. And it's probably a super unpopular opinion, but I absolutely love the movie, besides like a couple things here or there, which because I read the book I thought it was better. But just based on the movie solely alone, it was absolutely amazing. I think it was beautifully done, and I love me some Sandra Bullock, so yeah. But thank you if you're still here listening to my book/movie review. I hope you guys have a wonderful new year, and thank you so much for watching. Bye!